In this video we will learn how to create grid structures and millions out of 3D objects and surfaces. There are two different kind of methods I want to show you, and afterwards we play a little bit with different kind of objects and 2D planes. So let's start with a really simple plane. I just go into my keyboard entry. I have a length of 250 centimeters, a width of 100 centimeters. I go to create, and you can just see that I have segments 10 in my length direction, 6 in my width direction, and I just apply edit poly modifier to transform it a little bit. I choose one vertex point, I go into soft selection, and here I increase my fall off, so more vertex points are involved in my transformation, and I just transform this in Y direction a little bit. Okay, that's it, and I just add one modifier, my tessellate modifier, which I already show in one further video, in my video grid structures based on lines, and to have a little bit of a pattern inside. Okay, with this pattern we want to work with this kind of topology. I just copy it to the right side to show you these two different kind of methods. For both methods I need my edit poly modifier. The first method is based on my sub object hierarchy edge. I go into edge, I select with string A all my edges, and there's a really nice function which is called create shape. On the right there's this menu settings. I go into settings, first select linear, shape 0, I can just shape, then I call it shape tessellate 0, 1, and I go into choose OK, and it looks like before, but there's one difference. If I move my my edit poly and I just choose, instead of wireframe, I choose shaded edge, then you can see that this is not a polygon anymore. It's based on 2D lines. It's actually a spline. So these are spline lines, which is really nice, because with these spline lines you can just, like shown in my other video before, you can just give this a dimension in enable renderer, for example. You can give this volume, or you can also just say that you want to use my use this sweep modifier and give this dimension. This is definitely looks a little bit weird right now, because my T profile is definitely too big for my shape, but if I adjust it a little bit, then you can already see that this actually looks quite good for the beginning. These are just T profiles, and you can do a lot of things with this and use this. Sometimes the basic settings, like I just switch this off, like in my editable spline, like radial or something like this always works properly, and then sometimes there are issues with the corners, and we will come back to this later on. Okay, so the first method is based on my edit poly edge object hierarchy. And there's one thing I want to show you. If I choose my edge and I go again into create shape, and I use, instead of linear, I use smooth, then something really nice happens. So I think it's a nice effect. Then the whole thing looks smooth. It's a little bit like a knitted surface. We just have a look at this in 3D, and this is what it looks like. And sometimes it's also really a really nice pattern structure. Okay, another method could be that you just choose your surface again. I go into isolate selection, and again I will add one edit poly modifier on it. I go into polygon and I select all my polygons, and I just go into animate to be a little bit more flexible for future variations, and then I can go into insert. And if I go into insert by polygon, that's important, then you can just, it's really small, so really have to take care that it's not too big. You can just have a really small insert of this. For example, like this, and I rename my edit poly to EP insert, edit poly insert. And what I can do as a next step, I can just go into and add a delete mesh modifier, and now these things are gone, and just attach a shell modifier. And then you also have a nice shape. You can define the dimensions, inner amount and outer amount, and it probably also looks even cleaner than the first method. It really depends. And if you just attach something like mesh smooth and increase the iterations, then you have automatically a structure and a surface, something like this. Before we continue with the new shape, I want to show you one thing. I used this insert in animate mode, which definitely has one advantage. I can go again into my edit poly and my settings, and I can just change the openings, the size of the openings. For example, do it even smaller, 0.2. And so this whole thing is already parametric, and I add again my mesh smooth modifier, and so you have a lot of variations. There's one thing really important: it depends on the selection. If I just go and click on edit poly insert, you can just see this doesn't look good anymore. You really have to keep an eye on that you don't change the selection underneath, because otherwise it will look completely different. Okay, let's have a look at a slightly more complex structure and geometry based on a 3D object. Most of the time it's like this. Things start with a really simple box. I will just show you what I did actually. I just built this, I have this box, and my box has just 3 segments, length, width and height direction. And I just applied an edit poly. We can just go back and do this again. I just choose my object, and I just delete all these things. I apply one edit poly, and then I just went into my edge, and I chose actually these edges, and it's important and not in window crossings, just these parts, and probably just do it in my front view, and these I hold my string key, and then I just turn this 45 degrees, and this is actually what I did before, and you can already see that it looks 3D Studio tries to smooth this whole thing. I don't want this. I just go into graphite modeling tools, property and hard, and then it looks a little bit like a folded structure. I have to leave my edge hierarchy, otherwise I'm distorting it even more. And I think this was the starting point of my geometry. Okay, I just right mouse click and name this edit poly twist. And for my selection to create something like a grid structure afterwards, I just add a new edit poly. And what is quite nice, I just go onto my edge level, and I deselect it actually, and there's a nice function, and in terms of my selection I can go into modify and then choose a ring, and this just selects all my edges around these objects. And if I then on top go into loop, you can see what it does. It just selects on top these things in a vertical way, and so there are a lot of options just using your selection tools. and afterwards I go again into into edit edges, and here's this create shape. I go into create shape, important, not smooth but linear, and I call it shape vertical. And here you can see that we already have our grid structure enabled in render, and viewport was switched on, so I can just increase it a little bit. I go into a rectangle 6 centimeters or a little small just because of my rendering, my scene. And if I go into isolate selection, you can see that this is my structure based on my selection. I want to build something like a sub-grid structure based on my object, and for this I go again into my edges, and what I can see is that there are some polygons non-planar, and I also would like to have a grid along these lines. And what I actually do is I can just attach an edit mesh modifier, and in edit mesh I go into edges, and if I select all edges right now, string A, then you can see all these hidden edges, and these edges we would like to be a part of our grid structure. So what I do in edit mesh, I go down unto the point of create shape from edges, and important, I have to switch off ignore hidden edges because I really want to see them, and I just call it shape substructure. I go into say OK, and here we go. I can select this substructure and go into my isolate selection, and we can see that this is now also based on my editable mesh, so we have nice lines between these polygons. If I attach again a sweep modifier, I will just go into my modifier list and sweep. First, they're much too big, that's obvious. I go into 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. This is not really an architectural scale, it's, or my whole object is quite small. We can still, that there is a little bit of an issue, these things crossing, so the bigger they become, the more obvious my mistakes are, these overlaps. We are aware of this, but again, we have to look at this later, because you can just fix it if you do the whole thing in a parametric way. But we just leave it like this, and we just have a look based on this model again on our second method, means we go for insert and edit poly. Okay, here's our basic shape again, and if I go into edit mesh and I choose polygons, then it looks like this. And if I just go into attach a new edit poly and again go into polygon, then you can just see the big ones. So what I have to go do actually, I go again into edit mesh. You see, it just looks different. I choose all my polygons, and there's one function, it's called explode. If I go into explode and then again into my edit poly on top, then I can choose these single faces actually. So this polygon consists on faces. If I switch it off again, my edit mesh, you can see that that this is one polygon, and now this polygon is exploded into two faces. And I can select all of them, probably use again animate, and use my method again in terms of insert. Insert by polygon, that's really important, and I can just insert it a little bit. Remember from last time that it was the really small geometry. I go into insert and did a small insert again. I attached a modifier named delete mesh, like this, and I can on top apply a shell modifier, and this already gives me a little bit of something. It doesn't look bad. There are not these weird explosions at the end of the day. Still something to optimize, but this is also already okay and a starting point, and just a different method of producing grid structures. So if your model is not too complex, this create shape from edges is definitely interesting options. Just did it again with a more simple shape. The middle works pretty well. The corner pieces, you can already see that there's a little bit of an issue. Then there is another really nice method, and this method is done with Para 3D, and there's a nice video about this from Ali Torabi, Plays Millions on Edit Poly. And what he actually does is, again, you have your array object, and you have your 3D geometry, and you just build up an array out of these line in Para 3D. And here you have full control of this, and you can also change my my proportions of my object again. This is my bar, and if I just go into length, I can change the value, for example, to 6, which is already quite thick, and you can see nothing is bending. It works really well. I can just choose a different profile, and I can also just distort these objects. If I just select one of these polygons and I go into use soft selection, I increase my my fall off and just distort a little bit. You can see it like this. Deselect it, and I go into auto update. Then we have to wait a little bit, some seconds. And here we go. The grid structure just followed my new transformed shape. I didn't have to do anything apart from updating my Para 3D. You can also do something really nice. We can just choose my basic object again, and I will just change in my sweep modifier my my section. I go into for example these pipe, make a little bit smaller, 2 centimeters, and then I can, in Para 3D, I can go into selecting my array node, and now instead of this object I can just choose these pipe, and it asks me if I want to replace it. Yes, I really would like to replace it. Yes, I will produce a new array, and then the transformation are already transferred. It takes a little bit of calculation, not too long actually. And then it asks me if I want to keep the old array. No, I don't want to keep this old array. And here we go. And now we have, instead of my, we just have the new shape, the new section based on my cube, so you can easily work in Para 3D and exchange just my grid structure however I want to have it. For everybody who is still watching, one last really nice thing with Para 3D, also shown in a video of Ali Torabi. I can just draw a simple plane, and I can use something it's called Para Shape. For this, I just have to deselect my plane. I go into Create Parametric Array. I go into Create Para Shape, and the first 10 dimension are my vertex points. The second dimensions are my splines. I go into Create. Now it takes a while again. Here we go, and I can just open my menu, and with vertex point I just drag and drop one surface modifier on a surface controller on top. I will select my surface, which actually has to be edit poly surface, and then I can already go into update controller, and we see, I want to see what's happening. For this, I just choose my plane, and in object properties, by object I go into see-through, so I can see it a little bit better. So I can just see that my splines just follow these follow these planes, and I can change it from UV to far U direction. Again, I can go and auto update, and we can just see our lines. And if I just go into select array nodes, I can just see that I have 10 splines and 10 vertex points and 6 splines. And if I just increase it to 12 splines, we can just see that 12 splines are following my my surface, so it's completely independent from this topology underneath, so it's just following the surface. And that's also a really nice and handy tool to build up grid structures.